So we're going to start with question 26. Okay, so for this one, we're asked which of the following is equal to the original expression. And so we are allowed a calculator on this section, so we could use a calculator. I'm just going to calculate these manually. So x squared minus 4 times x squared minus 4 is x to the fourth negative 4x squared, negative 4x squared, and 16. So this is equal to x to the fourth minus 8x squared plus 16. So the second one is equal to the original expression. And then for the first one, we have x plus 2 times x plus 2, which is x squared, 2x, 2x, and 4, which gets us x squared plus 4x plus 4. And then the second part of the equation is x minus 2 squared. So x minus 2 times x minus 2, x squared, negative 2x, negative 2x, 4. So that's x squared minus 4x plus 4. And then you have to multiply these two together. So again, I would recommend just using your calculator for this one instead of doing all the work manually. But when we multiply these two together, we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 times x squared plus 4x plus 4, x to the fourth, negative 4x squared, 4x squared. Sorry, this is 4x cubed, 4x squared, 4x squared, negative 16x. And then these two would cancel out, and it would be left with 16. These two cancel out, and these two cancel out. So we're left with x to the fourth minus 16x plus 16. So that is also equal to the expression. So the correct answer is C. I would not recommend actually working all this out. Just put this into your calculator. You can put both of these expressions into your calculator and check where it crosses the x-axis, or just check the graph if they line up. But yeah. All right, question 27. And this is the calculator portion. Okay, so for this one, we basically just have a traditional exponential equation. And so that would just be the initial value times 1 plus the rate to the power of time. And so in this case, time is equal to x. So we have something to the power of x. The rate is 2.5%. So when we convert that into a decimal, when we convert the percent into a decimal, we move the decimal place left to and we add 1 to it. So it would be 1.025 to the power of x, and the initial value of the investment is 500. So we have 500 times 1.025 to the power of the x, which is equal to B, or answer choice B. Okay, question 28. Okay, so for this one, the best way to do it is to plug these equations into your calculator. And so, um, so I don't know if you all can see that, but for the first graph, we have 5x minus y equals 9. So 5x minus y equals 9. We get a line. And then we plug in the second equation, um, negative 60x plus 12y equals negative 108. And as you can see, it created another line right on top of that original line, which means that it has infinitely many solutions, or answer choice D. And so you could also solve this by hand by finding the common ratio between the two, but that's a lot more work than just plugging it into your calculator. Okay, question 29. Okay, so for this one, we're given two major pieces of information, and that's that when the temperature is 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the gap width, or WT, is equal to 2.875 inches. And at a temperature of 100 degrees, um, the gap width is 1.875 inches. And so, um, since there's only two variables, you can actually plug these in. So, um, at t equals 40, if we plug these in, so because the answer choices give us the equations, so we just need to plug in these values. So for answer choice A, when we plug in 40, we would get 2.875. So answer choice A could work for this first part. For answer choice B, when we plug in 40, we would get a number way larger than 40, so B could not work. For answer choice C, when we plug in 40, it could work. And then for answer choice D, when we plug in 40, it could not work. Because for it to be equal to 2.875, the first term has to cancel out. Okay, and then for the second one, we just plug in. So we can use our calculators and plug into answer choice A and B. So we would have -1/60. Well, we don't even need to plug in because we know that since the width from 40 to 100 is decreasing because it went from 2 to 1, it decreased by 1. That means that the first term has to have a negative in it. And for answer choice A, it's -1/60 times the rate of change. So that means that the rate of change is negative. So the answer choice here has to be A. If it was answer choice D, then when t increases, this would have to increase. Okay, question 30. Okay, so for this one, it's asking us if the number of books increased by 30% between 2 years, and there were X books in the initial year, then which expression gives us the number of books in the final year? Well, we would just have to convert this 30% into a decimal. So 30% converted into a decimal would be 0.3. And then we would have to add the initial, which would be, so basically it would be 0.3 x plus 1x, because 1x is the initial amount of books and 0.3x is the rate of change. So that would just be 1.3x, which is answer choice C. Okay, question 31. Okay, so for this one, we're given that in total, they took a survey of 240 people, 3/5 liked comedies, and 1/15 of the people didn't respond. How many indicated that they do not like comedies? And so for this, we just have to find a way to turn this into the common denominator. And so 3/5 is the same thing as 9/15. I just multiplied the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, and then we add it to the 1/15, which gets us 10/15 that like comedies or did not respond, which means that the rest of the people said that they did not like comedies. So um, to find the common denominator, we'll just divide this by 5, divide the top and bottom by 5, which would get us 2/3. And then to find the opposite, it would just be 1/3. So 1/3 of the people responded that they um, do not like comedies. And it says how many of the 240 viewers. So we need to multiply 1/3 by 240. So 240 times 1/3 gives us 80. And that's the correct answer, 80. Okay, question 32. Okay, so for question 32, it asks us for the y coordinate of the y-intercept. And so we know that the y-intercept is where x is equal to 0. And so what we do to find the y value at that point is we just plug in 0 for x. So we have 3 to the 0th power plus 9. Anything to the 0th power is 1 plus 9, which means that the y-intercept is 10. And that is your answer. Okay, question 33. Okay, so for this one, we're told that two triangles are similar, and we're asked to find the value of cosine of f. And so, um, cosine is just equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And so this is just the general way to memorize it. SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. But you can memorize it any way you want. There's lots of different sayings to memorize it, but this is something you will have to memorize. And so we're asked to find cosine of angle F. And so cosine is this, adjacent over hypotenuse. And so adjacent would be this side, hypotenuse would be the long side, and opposite would be the side opposite to the angle, which would be this. So this is opposite. And we're trying to find adjacent over hypotenuse, which means this over this. And since we're told ABC is similar to DEF, that means that EF corresponds to BC and AC corresponds to DF. So it would just be 24 over 30, because the adjacent would be 24 and the hypotenuse is 30. So 24 over 30, which when simplified gives us 4/5, which is our answer. The answer is 4/5 or 0.8 if you want to use a decimal. Okay, question 34. Okay, so for this one, we're provided a bunch of countries and we're asked what is the capacity of the country that had the median capacity. And so mean is the average and median is the middle number. And so a great way to do this is to just cross off the highest and lowest one at a time. So this is the lowest and this is the highest. The next highest is 1904, and the next lowest is 536. Then we have 1197 and 628. And then you cross off 958 and 575, which leaves you with 863 as the median capacity. So correct answer is 863. So I'll just cross it off on the actual SAT paper itself. Okay, question 35. Okay, so for this one, so we're given a graph and we're told to find the point with coordinates 2 comma c. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to look here and go straight up here and just say, yeah, that's around 2.5, because 2.5 is not the correct answer. What you want to do is you want to see these points that they gave at 0, 4 and 5, 0, and you want to calculate the rate of change or the slope. So the slope for this graph is, well, it goes down 4 and it goes right 5, which means the slope is every time it increases by 1, it goes down, it goes negative 4/5. And that's the slope. So we just plug this into our formula, y equals mx plus b. So we have negative 4/5 as our slope. And we have x, or y-intercept is at positive 4 equals y. And then we just plug in our value for x, which is 2. So we have negative 4/5 times 2 plus 4 equals y. And we would get y equals 12/5. Or if you convert that into a decimal, 2.4. So that's the main reason why you don't want to just look at the graph and sort of guesstimate where it is, because it could be 2.5, it could be 2.4. You can't really tell just looking at the graph. So you actually do have to calculate the slope and do all this, because the correct answer was 2.4. If you were to just look at the graph, you might have guessed 2.5. Okay, question 36. As for question 36, we're told, we're asked, what is the typical minimum weight of an adult African elephant in pounds? And basically all we have to do is convert from tons into pounds. And so we go into the table, we see African elephant, because that's what it's asking for. And it asks us for the typical minimum weight. So the typical minimum weight is 2.5. So 2.5 tons. And we know that 1 ton is equal to 2,000 pounds. So 2.5 tons times 2,000 pounds gives us 5,000 total pounds. The correct answer is 5,000. Because we know that each ton is 2,000 pounds. So 2.5 tons is 5,000 pounds. Okay, I'll give you another minute for question 37. Okay, so for question 37, we're asked to find the difference in the lifespans of the two elephants and what is the percent difference. And so the way we would do this is we would take the larger number, which is 70, and we would divide by the smaller number, which is 60, which gets us 1.166666 repeating, which, and it asks us what is the percent difference. So the original would be 1. And so the percent difference would be all the decimal places after that. So 0.16666. And it asks us to turn that into a percent. So converting this into a percent would be 16%, 0.66. And then typically you'd want to round to one decimal place. So for this one, the accepted answers were 16.6, 16.7, and they also accepted 50/3, which is the same thing as 16.7%. So your rounding doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but you do have to round to one decimal place typically, or unless they specify. Okay, question 38. Okay, so for this one, we're just told to find the value of b, which is just the y-intercept. And so to find that, we just need to find the slope. And so when x increases from 2 to 3, we need to find out how much f of x increases by. So we do 151 minus 106, and we get a rate of change of 45. So every time x increases by 1, y increases by 45. So that's our slope. So to find the y-intercept, or when x is 0, we just work backwards from x equals 2. So we do 106 minus 45, which gets us 61. So when x is equal to 1, y is equal to 61. And then to get for x equals 0, we do minus 45 again, which gets us 16. So when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 16. So the correct answer is 16. Okay. Um, that is the end of this SAT paper. So now we're going to be doing the May 2021 SAT. So question 1, and we're back to no calculator. So there is no calculator allowed on these.
We should ask one question in the chat.
Don't you have to multiply 2 with 45 and subtract with 106? No, so for the last one, it was just y equals mx plus b. They gave us that form. So we know that if we know what the equation is 45x plus b. Yeah. Yep, that's correct. Yeah, the correct answer is 16. You got the same answer, you just used a different method. There's many ways to do it. Okay, so for this one, we're given two lines that intersect. And so we know that based on, I don't know what the theorem's called. I think it's like equal angle theorem. These two are the same and these two are the same. And so using that information, we know that 5x plus 5 equals 7x minus 35. So now we just have to find what the value of x is. So we subtract 5x from both sides. We get 5 equals 2x minus 35. We add 35 to both sides, which gets us 40 is equal to 2x. And then we divide by 2, which gets us x is equal to 20. And so the correct answer is B. Okay, question 2. Okay, so for this one, we have the absolute value of 2x minus 4 equals 8. And so we have, when we convert absolute values, we have 2x minus 4 equals 8, and 2x minus 4 equals negative 8. And now we just solve for the two possible values of x. So let's do the top one first. I'm just going to write this one a bit lower down. So we add 4 to both sides. We get 2x equals 12. Divide by 2, and we get x is equal to 6. And for the second one, we add 4, so we have 2x equals negative 4. X is equal to negative 2. And so it asks us for the positive solution, which would be positive 6. So the answer choice is C. If it asks for the negative solution, it would be negative 2, but it doesn't ask for that. Okay, question 3. Okay, so for this one, we're asked to find which of the following is equivalent to 4x to the third plus 8x squared. So we just have to find the common multiple. Well, for the first value or for the base value, it would be 4, since 4 multiplied by 2, 4 multiplied by 1 is equal to 4, and 4 multiplied by 2 is equal to 8. And then for the x's, it would be the lowest common multiple, which would be x squared, so 4x squared. And we're left with x, so 4x squared times x is 4x to the third, and then plus 2, because 4x squared times 2 is 8x squared. So this is the correct answer, which is answer choice C, 4x squared, and then in parentheses, x plus 2. Okay, question 4. Okay, so for this one, we have 2n plus 12 equals 26n. So we basically have to find the value of 6n. So let's just find that value of n first, subtract 2n from both sides. We get 12 equals 24n. Divide by 24, and we get 1 over 2 equals n. We're asked to find 6 times that. So we have 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. The correct answer is C. Okay, question 5. Okay, so for question 5, we have a quadrilateral ABCD. And so the main thing about quadrilaterals is that no matter what shape it is, if it's a square, if it's like some weird shape like, I don't know, this, I guess, as long as it has 4 sides, the main thing that is always true is that the sides have to add up to 360. So A plus B plus C plus D, the angles have to equal 360. For a triangle, it's like 180. And then for something with 4 sides, it's 360. And so we know that this has to equal 360, the figure which they've given us. And so we have x plus angle B would just be 90 degrees because it has this square thing, which means that it's a right angle, which means it's 90 degrees, plus angle C. I'm just going to call it C. I'm not writing that. Plus angle D. So x plus 90 plus C plus D is equal to 360. And basically, we're just asked which answer choice matches that. So x plus 90 plus C plus 3 equals 360. And so the correct answer here would be answer choice A, because we have x plus 90, we have C, which is 2x minus 5, plus D, which is x plus 35 equals 360. So the correct answer is A. Okay, question 6. Okay, so for question 6, it asks us which of the following can be determined using the information given. So like I said in the last question, the angles have to add up to 180, and we know angle B is 90 and A is 40. So we have 90 plus 40 plus angle C. So we can figure out the measure of angle C. So 1 has to be true. And then for number 2, the length of side AB, well, for sine, cosine, and tangent, all we need to know is either we need to know 2 side lengths or we need to know a side length and an angle. And in this case, we know a side length and an angle, so we can use those to figure out the side lengths of the other sides. So we could figure out number two too. So the correct answer would be answer choice C. So for sine, cosine, and tangent, you either need to know two of the side lengths, or you need to know a side length and an angle. Okay, question 7. Okay, so for question 7, it asks us which of the in XY plane, it gives us that line L has a slope of 2, and line K is perpendicular, so I know. So parallel would mean that they have the same slope. Perpendicular means that they have an inverse slope. I think that's exactly what the terminology is. So L has a slope of 2. That means that K has a slope of -1/2. So basically what you do is you switch the sign. So this is +2, it now becomes negative. And you switch the top and bottom. So this is like 2/1. 2/1 is still 2. So +2/1, and you just switch everything. So it becomes negative, and 2/1 becomes 1/2. So if the slope is super positive, the perpendicular line would have a slope that is very small. And so using the formula y equals mx plus b, we have y equals -1/2 x plus b. And so we're given that it contains the point 4, 2. So 4, 2. So we know that since it has a negative slope, when you go on the x-axis, if you go back to the origin, so that means you have to go left 4, that means your y value has to increase, which means it has to be greater than 2. So the correct answer here would be answer choice D. Correct answer is answer choice D. Because we have a negative slope, which means that our y-intercept has to be at a larger y value than if you were then at the y value for x equals 4. Okay, question 8. Okay, so for this one, we're given an equation C equals X over Y. We're told to find Y in terms of C and X. So we multiply both sides by Y. That gets us Y C equals X. Then we divide both sides by C and we get Y equals X over C. So the correct answer is answer choice D. Correct answer is D. Okay, question 9. Okay, so for this one, we're told that there's a graph with Y equals F of X and that's Y plane with intercept of 0, -12. What is the Y-intercept of the graph? If you add 2, so basically, main thing to solve this problem is what exactly is F of X? That's all you need to know. Well, we know F of X is basically just the Y value. X is the X value and F of X is basically the Y value. So we have 0, -12. And so F of X would just be -12. So we have -12 plus 2 equals the new Y value, which is -10. So the Y-intercept would be 0, -10. Or answer choice B. Okay, question 10. Okay, so for this one, we're told to find which of the following are x-intercepts on the graph. And so to find the x-intercept, we know that y is equal to 0. So we know that 0 is equal to all of this. And so that means that we know that the bottom function or x cannot equal 0. And the reason why is you can't divide by 0. Dividing by 0 gets you undefined. Or it would be like in a graph, this would be either no point would exist or it would be a straight up and down line. But don't worry about the straight up and down line. That one's for very later on. You won't have to worry about the SAT. But when you divide by x, the line does not exist. So it can't be 3. And then for 1 and 2, when x is equal to -3, well, -3 plus 3 is equal to 0. 0 times anything is equal to 0, so y is equal to 0, so that is true. And then for 2, 2 minus 2 is equal to 0. 0 times everything is still 0, so 2 will also work. So the correct answer is 1 and 2, which is answer choice C. Answer choice C. Okay, question 11. Okay, so for this one, we're given a graph with an equation. We're asked, what is the value of A? Well, a simple way to do it is to find the intercept. So when X is, or the Y-intercept more specifically, I mean, you could also do X-intercept, but that's harder. But so when X is equal to 0, we have, what is Y equal? So Y equals 2 to the 0th power minus A. And on the graph, we can see that it equals -3. So -3 equals 2 to the 0th power minus A. So -3 equals 1 minus A. So what does A equal? A is equal to 4. Because 1 minus 4 is -3. So the correct answer choice is A. Or -4. Sorry, not -4, 4. Okay, question 12. Okay, so for question 12, it asks us which equation represents the relationship between total body length and tail area. And so a good way to do this would just be plugging in a value on the graph for L. So I'm just going to use like something like 30. So we have into each equation. So we have the length is always squared. So we have 30 squared, which gets us like 900. Yeah, it's just like 900. So 900 times, well, for answer choice B, if we multiply it by 1, for tail length would be very large. For C, it would be even larger. And for D, it would be even larger. Answer choice A is the only one that makes sense. Because if we multiply 900 by like 0.02, we would get like approximately like 19 or 18, which is on the graph, that's around what it's at when you're at 30. Okay, question 13. Okay, so for this one, we have two equations. So the first thing I did was just simplify the bottom equation because they all have a common factor of 3. So 3x becomes x, 6y becomes 2y, and 12 becomes 4. And so now we're working with two simpler equations. And so we're asked to find the value of x. So I guess we'll find y first. X equals 2y. X equals 4 minus 2y. Just plug in 8 times 4 minus 2y minus 4y equals 7. 32 minus 16y minus 4y equals 7. Then we get 32 minus 20y equals 7. Subtract 32 from both sides, which gets us 25. So negative 25 is equal to negative 20y. Move the negatives because they're both negative, and then divide by 20, which gets us y equals 25 over 20, which is when you divide by 5 for the top and bottom, it's 5 over 4. So you do x plus 5 times 2 is 10 over 4 equals 4. So x plus 2.5 equals 4, which means 4 minus 2.5 is just 1.5. So x is equal to 1.5. So the answer choice is A.
For sure. We will end the session now. And we'll see you all next week on Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye, everybody.